Okay, so let's talk Breach for a little while. I'm not going to beat the dead horse here because, like, I have a podcast now, so we'll probably talk about Breach on the podcast episode that we'll probably record either this weekend or at the beginning of next week. But I do want to spend a few minutes just talking about Breach and it leaving the format and what that means moving forward. First of all, I want to say that I was very much in favor of this ban. I was thinking that this was going to be too soon for Wizards to move, and I figured we'd end up playing with Breach for about 3 more months before it got itself banned. But in terms of power level, Breach was definitely above what is acceptable for the format. So you had multiple players who were grinders with win percentages above 80%, I believe, for like a sustained period of time. And that's kind of ridiculous. And you just see lots and lots of posts in some of the higher end chats about people posting about like their 2000 ELO because they've been playing with Breach or something like that. So the deck was great. It was, effectively better Yawgmoth's Will, and it was really cool. It was really neat to see that deck develop, and I don't know that we reached the absolute height of what that deck was capable of before it got itself banned. I think a lot of people were still doing cool things with the deck list, in that they were trying out like more sideboard tech, more things for the mirror. Like I know Max was trying out like sideboard counterbalances to go with predicts, to play a more controlling post-board game when you needed to do that. And it kind of sucks for those people who were invested in trying to tune the deck, but I don't feel bad for that. Like, it was time for the card to go. What I do feel bad for is everyone who had ordered these cards on paper, and for some of those people, like, their cards still hadn't arrived yet, and that's a pretty big blow to them in terms of finances. Like, I know Magic is very much a luxury hobby and whatnot, but if you're constantly putting your player base in a situation where every few months the deck that they are playing and investing in and learning in is getting, pulled out from underneath the rug, or the rug is pulled out from underneath them, they're going to lose a lot of consumer confidence. Yeah, and if that's all you bought, that's okay, right? But if you bought a set of Lion's Eye Diamond, for example, I wonder what those go for on the StarCityGames.com. Oh god, how does this website work now? Okay, there it is. Lion's Eye Diamond. So on the StarCityGames.com, Lion's Eye Diamond was out of stock at $220. So let's say you paid a little bit less than Star City for those. Like, let's say you paid $200 on your Lion's Eye Diamond because you knew this was the best deck, you've been playing a lot of Magic Online, and you were going to play it in the 20K. If you went out $800 to buy into Breach in Legacy, that is a pretty devastating financial blow. Now, it's not like your Lion's Eye Diamonds lost huge amounts of value overnight. That card is still going to be very good, but you always lose something when you flip cards. That is, if you're flipping them to a dealer. If you can grind out the value on the trade floor and you have the time and the ability to do that, awesome. You don't really lose out on that much. I suppose this doesn't really need to be the curses screen anymore for this. Do I have a full screen me still? Screen starting screen, tutoring screen? No, not that. Guest screen? No. Normal screen? All right, we're sticking with normal screen. I guess it's on my other program that I have a full screen me face. I'll get to that. You can stare at this wonderful screen for a little while, I guess. So very much sad about the financial implications for some of the paper players. But that's not necessarily Breach's fault. That's more of a the design philosophy of the last year or so, right? The 2019-2020 sets have been absolutely impressive, and we've seen a lot of bans in a short period of time for that. But moving past that, You can, you know, make arguments that Breach went at an appropriate time, or it should have stayed a little bit longer to see how the deck adapted and put up greater numbers. But I'm personally very happy that it's gone. Moving forward, you should expect the metagame to largely revert to what it was like prior to the most recent set. So basically, Breach is the one card from that set, right? Like, that is your one absolutely huge, crushingly good format-changing card from the set. So I would expect to revert back to a time where Dreadhorde Arcanist is very good, Oko is very good, and as far as, like, the new combo deck that will rise to fill the void, maybe we'll be talking about something like TES being good. Maybe your show and tell decks will be good again. A lot of people have been messing with blue-green show and tell prior to Breach absolutely devastating and changing the format. So that's something that I might have in mind to think about. We had a lot of people like Julian, E.W. Landon. I don't remember if JPA was messing around with the green splash as well, but that deck looked pretty good. Otherwise, the generic snow piles are still going to be there. Breach is going to obviously be gone, and a lot of the decks that were preying on Breach might decrease a little bit. So this deck still beats them all. I mean, obviously, you know, we said this was the last Curseade, but maybe it'll be back again. The people seem to like the Curseades. And I'm not sure what Delver Flayer is going to be the best as your immediate choice moving forward. So I think Blue-Red Delver was pretty darn good for a decent while there, but a lot of people were messing around with Grixis too. And it's possible that, like, people might start messing around with Bug again. I would probably use Blue-Red Delver as my starting place, though, if I were a Delver player moving forward. What's the status of the 319 stream? I don't believe we did not pick up any subs today. We picked up a handful of followers, but no subs. So we can push that goal to Thursday if need be. You resubbed earlier and didn't see it come up. I also did not see that come up. Hold on. Yeah, Variays, I don't have you in my log for some reason, but thank you very much for your continued support. And Fine and Andy as well, thank you very much. You are quickly becoming one of the patrons of the channel, and it is very, very much appreciated. All right, so let me pull up something over here. Let's look at some things. So, like, if we look at some of our archetypes here, I think some of the things that might have been playing on... Yeah, I'd show you what I see, but then, like, you'd be looking at the stream at the same time, and then we'd end up with that weird, like, mirror effect. So I don't know what's up there. Okay, so I think some of the things that were preying on Breach will probably decrease a little bit. So I think the various Eldrazi decks that we were seeing oftentimes were there to fight against Breach. I think some of the Leyline, Chalice, Karn decks, or some of the homebrews, like a Bug Trinosphere deck, like a Bug Urza deck, I think those sorts of things that people were brewing to try to beat Breach are probably going to lose a little bit of their competitive grip. I think a lot of people will default to sort of like the Miracles, Snow Piles if they're looking to play a control deck. I think Blue-Red Delver is probably better than Grixis Delver as a starting point in the new format, just since you can clock people so quickly, And so prior to the bannings, I thought that the 3 pillars of the format were Dreadhorde Arcanist and Oko and Breach. And then we lose the Breach pillar, so I think a lot of people will default to Arcanist and Oko-based strategies as they try to figure out the format and figure out what's good. And then some of your decks that might have been depressed by Breach may start coming back. Some of the decks still have problems, though, against other things that exist in the format. So, like, Arkham's Astrolabe is something that puts a little bit of pressure on decks like D&T and Goblins, because your Wastelands and Ports lose some amount of value. Veil of Summer is something that still puts a lot of pressure on black-based decks. So a lot of your Hymn to Turok-based decks are significantly worse than they used to be. Or decks like Ant are perhaps less viable than something like TES, which actually has a red-based win condition. And actually multiple red-based win conditions. So those are some of my initial thoughts. I did a little bit of reading on Twitter. A lot of people think 4-color Loam is going to end up getting a little bit worse. I think Maverick might be a deck that might benefit a little bit. I think that deck was already pretty good in spite of Breach, and now that deck can take out some of the questionable cards from its main deck, such as the Dryad Militant, that were there specifically to fight Breach, and they'll also probably free up a decent amount of sideboard slots. Enchantress benefits. Sure. Do I still have that deck list up? So I think this is the deck list that I 5-0'd with a little while ago for Enchantress. Let me see if I can get this all on screen here. And I thought this deck was very, very powerful. Destiny Spinner is another recent card that has really gotten overshadowed by Breach, but I think Destiny Spinner is incredibly powerful. That is a card that I would definitely like to revisit. And as far as like the sideboard of this deck goes, you can make some adjustments now that Breach is not around. Like, you can probably cool it on the Mind Break traps. You know, some of these things like Stony Silence and maybe the second copy of Collector Oof can disappear from the deck list. And you can probably do a little bit of tweaking to make this a little bit better moving forward. You're still definitely going to want at least one Collector Oof. That card's really good. So I don't want to like go on in this entire like Enchantress deck tech here, but I don't think Helm is particularly good in a Destiny Spinner build, because Destiny Spinner makes your creature and enchantment spells uncounterable, but not your Helm. So you don't really want an artifact-based win condition when so much of the time you can make your enchantment-based win conditions just uncounterable. And Destiny Spinner usually just wins the game on its own if you just like keep casting spells for a couple of turns. So I don't really know that you need Helm in a Destiny Spinner build. I also don't know that quite as much graveyard hate will be necessary moving forward. Like, in this format right now, basically every deck list that I play has 4 Leyline of the Voids in it. Like, if we just kind of skim through, like, this was a 4 Leyline deck. I'm sure this is a... Well, I feel like that should be a 4 Leyline deck, but whatever. This is probably a 4 Leyline deck. Is this a Leyline deck? That one's not a Leyline deck. This one a Leyline deck? No. But, like, so many of... This was the one I was thinking of. So many of the deck lists that I've been playing, either on or off stream, have just started with 4 Leyline of the Voids in the sideboard. And I feel like people can back off of that a little bit. So some of your cards like Surgical Extraction will become a little bit better than they've been recently. And some specific sideboard hate cards for Breach, such as Deafening Silence, will become a little bit worse. So I think those are like my short, just like off the cuff, no preparation thoughts about Breach. I will put together more articulated thoughts about the metagame moving forward for when I actually like go and record a podcast episode. But hopefully that'll tide you over until then. So I'm going to go ahead and call it here for tonight. Folks, I hope you all enjoyed this. If you're new to the channel, please consider following. And if you're really enjoying, please consider supporting the stream in the future in some way. The support is very much appreciated and keeps fine legacy content flowing. I will be back on Thursday with another mono black deck, but one of a very different nature. So Thursday we are going to be playing Death, which is another very strange hybrid deck. So we are a Painter, Grindstone, Hex Mage, Depths, Leyline, Helm, Leyline, Ill-Gotten Gains, Karn deck. So really straightforward. I'm sure everything makes sense immediately after looking at this. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn you over to my friend Anurag, who is probably enjoying his last few moments with his Breach deck. So make sure to like go in there and type F in the chat and all of that sort of thing. I'm strongly considering sending a donation list with a slightly more prison strategy of mono black. I mean, I don't know how long you've been watching my VODs on YouTube, but we pretty much always have a good time when we're playing mono black on this channel. It is quickly becoming a fan favorite. All right, cheers, folks. I'm going to send you over to Anurag. On the DMTG. Cheers and have a good night.